Day, my friends. David here again. We are in day 51, Exodus 9 to 11, dealing with a lot of the plagues of Egypt, and then we're going to get into First Thessalonians chapter 1 real quick as well. I just found this thing pretty interesting on Facebook earlier. This whole giant pillar of ping pong balls is the 3,000 hours a year that your children are at home with you. And then this little tiny jar down here of ping pong balls is the 40 hours a year that your children are at church with the option of learning about God from there. And it's really staggering to realize that our kids need to be getting as much of the word from us, if not more, than from anywhere else, any other source. They're probably not going to get it at school unless they're at a private school or a Christian school or Catholic school or however that goes. Most likely, unless you have a really amazing, teacher in public education who doesn't mind talking about Jesus whenever he gets a chance. But anyway, the plagues of Egypt, okay, we got the fifth plague, livestock being killed off. Remember, Pharaoh's stubborn, okay, and all of that, and Israelites are lacking faith in all the miracles that are taking place, and it's still just a reminder to us when we're stubborn, even though we see all these miracles going on. We even have more proof of God's miracles now than they did thousands of years ago when they left Egypt. All of those miracles, and God points to his miracles he did in Egypt constantly when he's reminding the children of Israel about who he is and what he's done for them. So it's pretty interesting. And then, of course, you have the plague of boils, the plague of hail, the plague of locusts. They're nonstop. Oh, and then chapter 10, verse 2, that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's sons the mighty things I have done in Egypt, my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. See right there. All of these things, tell them to your children. Your children. Don't leave it up to your Sunday school pastor or the church leadership. You tell your children what God has done in Israel's history and in your personal history. The ninth plague of darkness, that's a crazy one. That darkness actually was felt, okay? A deeper darkness than just the absence of light, but a spiritual darkness, a darkness that you could feel. And that's what I often refer to the presence of hell itself, is darkness that can be felt. The emptiness, the presence that you are the only one there. So you feel like you're the only one there. That's what that's going to feel like. And it probably felt like for 3 days there. It's interesting that God is using his miracles, his plagues, to take down different Egyptian gods constantly. Ra is the sun god, the source of light. So for God to take out the ability for anybody to have light, the Egyptians were in darkness. And they're begging Pharaoh because Pharaoh was their god. They for generations had believed that Pharaoh was their god, that Egypt was the center of the creation of the earth. That's how crazy it was. So for God to come in and say, no, this isn't going to happen, it's basically taking away all the things that they believed in. There's a lot we can learn about the plagues and going through those and understanding them, depicting the warnings, the blood, the frogs, the lice, the flies, all of that, the different gods that those went on to. And of course the correlation between the plagues. The first and 10th plague related to blood, water for blood on doorposts and lintels for the Passover. The frogs are night creatures, and the 9th plague of darkness for 3 days. The lice from the dust and the locusts are notably admitted by the enemies as acts of God. So even Pharaoh's, priests were like, there's nothing we can do about this one. Thunder and hail and flies. Goshen is mentioned in both of those occurrences. Disease of cattle and boils, both focusing on beasts. So it's interesting as you get into the structure there. And also there's a lot of revelation correlations as well that you can study on your own as well. And I do highly recommend studying all of this on your own because that's what being a Christian is following him and following his word and understanding it, bearing it in your heart. And I read it all the time because I want to have it up here, have it in here, have it everywhere, permeating through my life and my existence. First Thessalonians, we get into the New Testament because it's good to blend Old Testament and New Testament together. I've been enjoying this blending in the Bible app. The letter to Thessalonians, probably written about 20 years after Christ's resurrection, um, written for the steadfastness of joy that the writers had, joy. And they were trying to express that joy in the believers and seeing what the believers were doing in that church, refuting false charges, slanderous insinuations that were being circulated. There was false news going around about Paul and his and his helpers, his assistants, his other apostles. Personal attacks, people were attacking Paul all the time, writing letters pretending they were from Paul. These days we have social media. You can fake an account or put in a pretend account, or a bot or a troll, as they're called. Chapter 1 is how the church spreads the gospel. And I think there's a big part here where the good example that they lead for us. Verse 2, we give thanks to God always for you, always mentioning you in our prayers. The priority here is continual prayer, not stopping in your prayers for God to make a work known and be amazing. Remember, without ceasing your work of faith, labor of love, patience of hope in our Lord Jesus Christ, in the sight of our God, our Father. For we know the gospel did not come to you in word only. It's amazing what we can learn from all of this. Okay. I think the big thing here is understanding that Jesus, who was raised from the dead, and we are waiting on him to return for us. A lot of what Paul writes in these letters is a confirmation that God is still in control, he's still in charge, and even if the people die, because they believed Jesus was going to come back any minute. So they were wondering what was going to happen to those who are already dead. But, God will resurrect them. He will take care of them. And it's interesting, the significance here. There's a point to us when we become saved. We should turn from our idols, turn to the living God, to be following after him. That means breaking away from all of the things that held us on to the earth and to sinful nature and all of that, to active service of God, the fruit of his love, patiently waiting for the blessed hope, which is the return of Jesus. Turning, serving, and waiting. Turning, serving, and waiting. That's it. That's what we should be doing. Constantly focused on what he has in store for us. The next chapters of Exodus 12, 13, and 14, and 1 Thessalonians 2 coming up tomorrow. Have a good night, and bless you, my friends. I'm praying for you.